And welcome back to another fantastic episode of Minecraft City Building. My name is Dr. Wasabi as we fly around the majestic new area of the city limits. I hope everyone's having a fantastic start for the summer period. I sure am. Of course, with the summer we have such things as heat, rain and lightning, and even more heat. But luckily folks, it isn't exactly baking right now, which leaves me with a special opportunity to record a lovely city episode for you nice people. Okay, let me just land here. So, not to give you any more vertigo from me flying around the topic of today's video, in today's episode we are going to be working on the city park, among as other things around the general area of, well, said park. But before I go into anything further, I just want to say if you do like what I do, please like this video and subscribe. Now let's get into it, shall we? Okay, so folks, for those who remember and was in the stream when I actually did this, we have been spending at least around a week or so just kind of ambiently filling up the space for the city park. Now, of course, because this is Fallout, I wanted to make a bit more of a high-tech theme with this thing. Maybe it's an infrastructure upgrade, you know, things like that. It is the kind of focus for today's video. And of course, because it is high-tech, we have all of the kind of space-age materials that come along with that. So using some concrete and terracotta, I've made a lovely base for the city park, as well as some nice little planters for some wild grass that's going to grow around the sides of the park itself. Now, I try not to get too carried away with the building, otherwise I wouldn't have much to do in an episode, now would I? But that being said, the majority of the, well, what you see here is essentially the path layout, as well as the more finicky part of the build. Let me tell you, actually filling this up was a pain in my, well, I'm not going to say it here, but you get what I mean. So the general plan for what we're going to be doing today is going to be split into 4 sections. You may kind of realize that this is a very kind of parallel build to itself, which is kind of the idea really. I want this to be split into 4 pizza sections, as I'd like to colloquially call it. Each section will have its own unique style in terms of kind of foliage and different things like that. Now, I don't want to try and make it too exotic because, you know, this is a city, it's not exactly a menagerie or something like that, so we'll keep it somewhat muted, but I want there to be a clear sense of diversity in the plants we use in the park itself, as well as a nice little place or field, a lawn, so to speak, so people can picnic or just sit down in the shade. Believe me, in the summer, you'll definitely want to do it. So enough babbling on from me, I think it's time to get into the build. Now, with building the park, I've had a bit of time to just experiment with different blocks that I think may look very kind of aesthetically pleasing against the more kind of darker tones of the dark greens, and of course the kind of high-tech shading of the grey concrete and cyan terracotta. So these are the kind of blocks I want to use in the kind of above foundation area of the park itself. So for any platforms for trees and plants and stuff like that, we'll be using a mix of stone bricks, dark prismarine, and of course cyan concrete. It's a bit of a change from the greenness of the park itself, which we kind of want to avoid to avoid saturation, so to speak. Alongside that, we have split our section into 4 varieties. We have the oak section, the birch section, the spruce section, and of course the azalea section. There is a good amount of diversity in the textures for each of the leaves, which will kind of be our kind of anchor point for each style of the each individual segment. And of course, no park can be a piece of greenery without some texture to the grass, including some ferns, large ferns, grass, and of course, large double tall grass. So now that the blocks are out of the way, it's time to get into the nitty-gritty of the build itself. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is just get like 4 platforms for each individual area. We're going to try to do this pretty parallel to well, each section. So if I do it like this, like so, how are we going to do this? Oh dear lord. Okay, so we'll do 2 there, 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2. How does that look? Okay, there's not too much space outwards, and it still leaves a good amount of the green left for further development. So I think that'll be the kind of shape of what we're going to be doing for the kind of tree planters, because the idea I want, I've been thinking about this, is that we'll have 4 custom trees for each variant in these kind of planters near to the center of the park, and then we'll have different areas for dining, maybe like a bandstand, gazebo, you know, what have you, just so people can sit down and whatnot. Okay, so the second thing we need to do is just kind of see how our 2 blocks are kind of complementary blocks, so to speak, are going to kind of go round. If I do that, and then this, like so, how's that going to look? Not bad, not bad. I think we do need to add something else, like a lip, around the build itself, so I'm going to get out some polished andesite, like so, just to give a more bland palette before the actual browns and greens of the trees, and so forth. One more thing we're actually going to do is, because we've got this kind of cyan terracotta outline for the path, we're going to bring this all around the planters themselves. Of course, we can copy this around to all 4 sides in a second, but it's always good to just add a little bits as you go along, because, you know, hey, you might think, you know, this is a good idea, I might put it over here, and so on. And of course, the final step for our planter is just to fill up some lovely bits of dirt and whatnot. This will take no time at all. The only real issue you'll have is just by texturing and whatnot. So we'll just kind of place a sporadic gathering of grass, and we'll have some coarse dirt over here. Now, one more thing I may want to do is just add some moss carpet, and the reason I want to do that is because if this is going to be a tree planter, then most likely there's going to be a lot of foliage and like dead leaves and what have you underneath the planter itself, because it's going to get a lot of shade and whatnot. So it's always best to have a bit of texturing, like so. One more thing we can actually use is some lovely brown concrete. No, brown terracotta, apologies, just to break up the kind of brown dirt texture, like so, as well as some lovely green terracotta, sorry, lime terracotta, just to add some more detail to the foliage. How does that look? Okay, that looks pretty textured, pretty textured. So now that that's done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into a quick time lapse just to copy this all around, and then maybe add some custom trees. We'll have to wait and see. Oh dear. So I think without further ado, it's time to get in to another time lapse.
I can't lie, I really
And we are back from that amazing time lapse. But before I show you anything further, folks, if you do like what I do, please like this video and subscribe. Okay, now let's see what we have built here. So going from all of our kind of divisions in the park, we have the custom azalea tree with some lovely kind of bonsai influences, in my opinion. When I actually looked at what azaleas were, they were very much a kind of bonsai tree looking plants or trees, which I kind of explains the Minecraft generation of these. So this wasn't too bad to construct. Of course, over here we have the majestic oak tree with the thickest trunk I have ever seen. Honestly, I usually do the trunk a bit thinner, but looking at reference images, some of these oak trees can grow really large, with most of the growth going to the branches with only a short little trunk, like so. Over here we have the majestic birch tree. Now, for those in the know, if you've been watching the City series since its early days, you will know that I've actually started building these custom trees before. They're very kind of swampy in that regard, so I tried to make it a bit more even in the branch layout. But overall, I think this one was a bit more experimental, but it turned out okay in my opinion. And of course, last but not least, we have the spruce tree. Now, funnily enough, this was actually the most difficult to build because I had to make it go just right. And for those who actually followed the time lapse, this goes at a slant. If that makes sense, because I wanted there to be somewhat equal to the center of the planter. So going from that, it was a bit difficult trying to find the correct angles that each block would go to. But in the end, I think I got something that mostly looks like a spruce tree. Again, if we have to change anything, we'll do it off camera. But overall, I think this is a great start to the park. It really kind of fleshes out the center, in my opinion. So I think the kind of next thing we need to do is maybe add some texturing to the trees themselves in the branches and the trunks and what have you, and we're going to work on the center and then spread ourselves out. So yeah, the first thing I'm actually going to do is I'm going to widen the kind of center square over here like so. So it's very kind of geometric how this is laid out, so it kind of goes into our favor at some point. Now, do I remove this or do I keep it? That's the question I'm asking for myself. But we can't really ask any questions until we've actually done it. Okay, nearly done, folks, nearly done. So we go like that and like that. So the idea I want is that this kind of the 4 planters kind of encompass a square within the park that maybe have some kind of gazebo, maybe, or I was thinking either a gazebo or a glowberry tree. Now, I could do a glowberry tree, but I think it would be a bit too saturated because it would essentially look like an oak tree, but with hanging glowberries on it. So I think I may do a gazebo, just so, you know, maybe a bandstand can play or what have you in the evenings and whatnot. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and find some blocks for the path, see if I can get something out. So I'll be right back with you, folks. Okay folks, so what I've decided after some kind of experimentation with the texturing of certain blocks, I think the middle path block will be kind of divided between tough blocks and stone, with the outer perimeter path being this little block of grass here being comprised solely of gravel. I may texture it up, I don't know. I think we're just going to get into it and see what we can do in that regard. So let's begin, shall we? So we're just going to fill in these little path squares with some toughened stone and see how it looks, like so. How's that look? Okay, it doesn't look bad. I think what we'll do is we'll do stone on the outside and then a tough center, just so it gives a bit more boldness to the actual path texture. Because I imagine these are kind of like placed stones or somewhat like that. How does that look? Okay, that looks good. I think. Actually, no, we'll stretch that out to over here, like so. Okay, that looks good. So we'll do that for the second one now, like so. Just laying out the stone like so, getting in our tuff. Very nice, very nice. And of course, for the side area, we'll put in our gravel, like so. Now you can really see the difference in texture from the tuff, the stone, and the gravel, which really kind of brings home the point that, you know, it may be the same color, but as long as it's a different texture, it will always have some kind of contrast with the block next to it. Like, of course, the cyan, terracotta, these stone bricks, and of course the smooth stone, which kind of goes around it. So that is the, well, a kind of brief preview of the textures. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to fill in the entire place with this kind of pattern texture as well as the gravel, and I'll be right back with you. Okay, now this is looking a lot better in my opinion. It's you know, it's all starting to come together. So the next thing we need to do is kind of focus not on the center area just yet, but actually focus on the outer area, like so, because we actually need to put in some planters, or at least a collection of planters along the edge of the park. Because think about it. You're picnicking, you don't want you know, one of your relatives or your kid to fall off the edge onto the pavement. That would not be very nice. So realistically speaking, it would only be appropriate just to put in maybe some sort of barrier between the edge and of course the lawn. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to do a similar planter design with the trees, but we're going to do it a very kind of long snaky pattern up to the edge, just so we can put in maybe some flowers or something along those lines, like so. So we've kind of put in our kind of pattern like so, our stone bricks. So if we do it like that, we don't have to do it too fancy. With angles and circles, it's usually best just to follow what block is in front of it, rather than worry about anything like, you know, proportional angles and what have you. So how's that going to look? Okay, very nice. Does that match with what we're doing over here? Okay, right, fantastic. So the next thing we need to do is maybe put in some dark prismarine over here on the edges, just like so, going over here. And of course put in the cyan concrete like so, going over here, just building it up like so. You can already see like the kind of visual barrier that you'll be able to notice on the edge of the lawn. So with these kind of things, we'll fill it up with all sorts of kind of plants and ferns and all that good stuff. Again, like we went over in the kind of block inspection, so to speak. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in this area. I'm going to copy it around on all the sides, and I'll be right back with you for when we build the eventual gazebo. To put not too fine a point on that took way longer than I expected. Holy moly. But yeah, the important thing is we've got the planters in, and now comes the fun part where we get our bone meal and we just go effectively just ham wild on the planters, just bone meal and the ever-loving snot of these things. Honestly. Right, so we're gonna give them a good bone mealing like so, a double round just to make sure that there's enough double grass in the planters themselves. And then what we can do is wherever we can see flowers, we're going to replace them with some lovely kind of bushes and things like that. So if we look over here. Okay, yeah, that's a sufficient texture in my opinion. We can always do this off camera. I just want to make sure that the outer perimeter is always nice and decorated, which leaves only the gazebo left to build. So I think what I'm going to do, folks, because I don't really have much experience building gazebos, but I'm pretty sure that it's like overrated platforms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into a short time lapse, see what I can come up with, and I'll be right back with you folks with the finishing touches. So I think without further ado, it's time to get in to another time lapse. Okay, so let's have a look at what we've built here. Honestly, I am in love with this gazebo, let me tell you. Now, there have been a few changes. For example, the use of the oak wood has been swapped out with a use of pillar quartz. Again, you know, you got to be experimental with these kind of things, and then if you don't like them, you can always change them afterwards. Of course, I've added a bit more detail to the kind of top arches of the gazebo itself. The supports looked a bit too flimsy in my opinion, so I added a nice decorative slash practical bar along the top of the gazebo like so. And if we go inside, we have a wonderful open space for, you know, maybe like bandstand, festivals, concerts, what have you. And of course a awesome little light feature using some lovely pearlescent frog lights and some oak trap doors. A very earthy texture. I really wanted this to be a blend between modern and old, but in a very subtle way. And that's kind of where the kind of light fixture comes into place, kind of melding those two styles. Because when you think of a gazebo, it's going to be something quite old, you know, maybe in a time of barbershop quartets, if you can imagine such things. But anyway, alongside that, we have some lovely use of decorated pots, the new 1.20 items, as these work as really nice kind of planters for bushes and just decorative things like that, and it goes really well with like the tree planters like so. It really kind of puts a centerpiece on the park as a whole. So I think from that, apart from maybe a few other things we need to do, I would say that is our build for today. Now you may be wondering, why is the green all kind of, you know, empty? Well, the logic is this is going to be where people sit down to picnic. I may texture up the lawn, so to speak, a bit more off camera, and post it to Planet Minecraft when it's all kind of polished, in my opinion. But there we go, the New Walden City Park. I do hope you enjoyed this episode of constructing New Walden City. Honestly, I can't even count how many episodes we've gone into this time. Maybe 51, 52, I don't know, but I'm just so glad you came along to watch this video. Of course, if you do like what I do, like this video and subscribe. My name has been Dr. Wasabi. I wish you a most pleasant good evening, and of course, as always, God bless. And now, folks, it is time to say good night. We sincerely appreciate your viewing and hope we've succeeded in providing you with an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Stay happy and come back again soon. Good night.